Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into one of the most fascinating periods in Chinese history, the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty, which lasted from 618 to 907 CE, is often hailed as one of the greatest eras in imperial China. Imagine a time of incredible reform and cultural advancement that set the stage for many policies still seen in China today. Let's talk about some of the key figures who made this dynasty so legendary. The second emperor, Taizong, who ruled from 626 to 649 CE, was an amazing leader. He reformed the government, social structures, the military, education, and even religious practices. His changes were so impactful that they shaped the dynasty's golden age. Then we have Xuanzong, Taizong's successor, who reigned from 649 to 683 CE. Xuanzong's wife, Wu Zetian, took the reins of power, making history as China's only female ruler. Although she's still a controversial figure, Wu Zetian's reforms set the stage for the later success of the great emperor Xuanzong. Xuanzong, who ruled from 712 to 756 CE, led China to become the most prosperous country in the world at that time. Now, what makes the Tang Dynasty truly remarkable are the incredible inventions and advancements that emerged. We're talking about things like gunpowder, air conditioning, gas stoves, printing, and major strides in medicine, science, technology, architecture, and literature. The combined efforts of Taizong, Wu Zetian, and Xuanzong made the Tang Dynasty a golden era. However, like all great things, it couldn't last forever. The golden age ended with Xuanzong's decline, which plunged the country into chaos. Eventually, the Tang Dynasty was succeeded by the Sung Dynasty, which managed to bring order back to China. But how did the Tang Dynasty rise to power in the first place? After the fall of the Han Dynasty, China went through a turbulent period with several dynasties, Wei, Jin, and Wu Hu, ruling in succession. Then came the Sui Dynasty, starting in 589 CE. The Sui made many advances and even gave us one of the best-known versions of the legend of Mulan. But like many before them, the Sui Dynasty ended badly. The last rulers, Wen and Yang, focused too much on military expansion and building huge monuments, driving the country into debt. The tipping point came when Emperor Yang was assassinated by his chancellor. This opened the door for a popular general, Li Yuan, to rise in rebellion. He became Emperor Gaozu and founded the Tang Dynasty in 618 CE. And now let's dive deeper into the Tang Dynasty's early days and some of its most influential leaders. Emperor Gaozu, the founder of the Tang Dynasty, was a smart and effective ruler. He reformed many of the policies that had led to abuses under the Sui Dynasty. It was Gaozu who implemented the bureaucratic practices that are still in use in China today. But even though he ruled well, his son Li Shimin saw room for improvement. Li Shimin, who had fought alongside his father to establish the Tang Dynasty, felt he deserved a larger role in making policy. He was given the title Duke of Qin, but he wanted more. Gaozu continued to govern, creating the Tang legal code in 624 CE, which became a model for future dynasties and even influenced other nations like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. He also reformed the aristocracy to prevent overtaxation of peasant farmers and redistributed land. But when Gaozu named his son Li Jianqing as his heir, Li Shimin couldn't tolerate it. He had expected to be named heir due to his efforts in quelling the Sui rebellions. In a dramatic move, Li Shimin staged a coup, murdered his brothers, including Li Jianqing, and forced his father to abdicate. Once he became emperor, he took the name Taizong and declared that his deceased brothers were now his celestial advisors, using the concept of ancestor worship to his advantage. Taizong proved to be an exceptional leader, surpassing even his father. He is remembered for his many reforms and his policy of religious tolerance, allowing religions like Christianity and Buddhism to flourish alongside Confucianism and Taoism. Taizong's effective rule made him a co-founder of the Tang Dynasty and a model of just governance. Now, let's talk about Wu Zetian, one of the most intriguing figures in Chinese history. Around 638 CE, Taizong chose a beautiful young girl named Wu Zhao as one of his concubines. She was so captivating that she caught the eye of Taizong's son, Li Ji. After Taizong's death in 649 CE, Wu followed the custom of becoming a nun, but Li Ji, now Emperor Gaozong, brought her back to court because he was in love with her. Wu quickly rose to power, becoming Gaozong's first concubine, much to the dismay of his wife, Lady Wang, and the former first concubine, Lady Xiao. To eliminate her rivals, Wu allegedly murdered her own infant daughter and framed Lady Wang for the crime. With her opponents out of the way, Wu became the power behind the throne. When Gaozong died in 683 CE, Wu declared herself Empress Wu Zetian, the only female ruler in Chinese history, and changed the dynasty's name to Zhou to signify a new era. Wu Zetian was an extraordinary ruler who improved education, taxation, agriculture, and government. Despite her controversial reputation and the establishment of a secret police force, recent historians recognize her policies as having stabilized the country. However, toward the end of her reign, she became more interested in her own comfort and was eventually forced to abdicate in favor of her son, Xuanzong. Emperor Xuanzong's reign was cut short when he was poisoned by his wife, Lady Wei, so her son could rule. However, Lady Wei and her son were soon murdered by Wu Zetian's daughter, Princess Taiping, who then placed her brother Ruozong on the throne. Ruozong, interpreting a comet as a sign he was unfit to rule, abdicated in favor of his son, Xuanzong. Under Xuanzong's reign, from 712 to 756 CE, the Tang Dynasty experienced its golden age. Xuanzong promoted Taoism, abolished the death penalty, improved the economy, and encouraged productivity in foreign trade. He reorganized the military to create a professional army, boosting the country's defenses and reclaiming lands from nomadic tribes. And now let's talk about the amazing cultural advancements that took place, especially during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong. Emperor Xuanzong wasn't just a skilled ruler, he was also a man of culture and a poet who loved the arts. Under his reign, creative expression reached new heights. Imagine a time when over 50,000 poems, plays, short stories, and other literary works were produced. This was also the period when an extensive encyclopedia was completed. One of the significant technological advancements was woodblock printing. It started on a large scale under Taizong and saw further improvement under Xuanzong. This innovation made books more available, leading to greater literacy and better job opportunities for the lower classes. With more people able to read, they could now take civil service exams and aim for government positions. Public libraries sprang up to house all these new books, and printed calendars became widely distributed. Advances in medicine were also significant. Symptoms of diseases and their treatments were documented in books, making this knowledge accessible to everyone, not just medical professionals. These books also promoted healthy habits and proper diet as essential to maintaining good health. Technological advancements didn't stop there. The Tang Dynasty saw the invention of clocks, with the world's first clock mechanism created by the engineer Yi Xing in 725 CE. There were also impressive automatons, motorized figures that could move on their own. While motorized puppets had existed since the Qin dynasty, the Tang automatons were more complex. For instance, there was a motorized monk who collected donations and an automatic wine pourer shaped like a mountain using a hydraulic pump. The Tang Dynasty was also a period of incredible inventions like gunpowder, waterproofing, fireproofing, gas stoves, and even early forms of air conditioning. Agricultural machines were developed to make planting, irrigating, and harvesting crops more efficient. This period saw a significant improvement in the quality of life for many. The poor, who once wore animal skins, could now afford linen, though it was coarser than what the middle class wore. Trade flourished, bringing new ideas, inventions, and products to China in greater numbers than ever before. The Tang Dynasty truly shone under Xuanzong's reign, reaching its peak in cultural and technological advancements. However, as Xuanzong began to decline personally, so did the dynasty, eventually leading to chaos throughout the country. And now let's explore the dramatic and destructive period known as the An Lushan Rebellion. Xuanzong's reign was marked by fairness and justice, largely thanks to the merit-based government reforms he upheld. These reforms, initially introduced by Wu Zetian, placed people in high positions based on their abilities rather than their family connections. Teachers, agricultural administrators, and other officials were appointed because they were the best at what they did, not because of who they knew. However, things started to change around 734 CE when Xuanzong began to tire of public life. He started relying more on the advice of his consort, Lady Wu Guifei, who suggested he elevate her family friend, Li Linfu, to a prominent position to help with the burden of ruling. This decision proved disastrous. Li Linfu was a corrupt and power-hungry man who only cared about advancing himself. While he pretended to be a loyal servant, he secretly schemed to seize power and depose Xuanzong. Xuanzong, trusting Li Linfu, handed over more responsibilities to him, especially after the death of consort Wu in 737 CE. Xuanzong withdrew further from public affairs, indulging in personal pleasures. He kept over 4,000 of the most beautiful women in the palace for his entertainment. But everything changed in 741 CE, when Xuanzong fell deeply in love with Yang Guifei, who was married to his son. Yang left her husband and moved into the imperial palace, where Xuanzong neglected his duties even more. Lady Yang quickly gained influence, making increasingly large demands and having her family members promoted to important positions, despite their lack of qualifications. The reforms and progress made under Xuanzong began to unravel as Yang's relatives abused their power. Meanwhile, Li Linfu continued his corrupt practices, promoting foreign nationals in the army and placing his own hand-picked men in command. When he died in 753 CE, his actions had already doomed the dynasty. The army was filled with unqualified commanders, and the government was run by incompetent bureaucrats who only cared about their own power and luxury. Seeing the chaos, a half-Sogdian, half-Turk general named An Lushan decided to act. He commanded the best troops in the Chinese army and felt it was his duty to restore proper governance. In 755 CE, An Lushan led a rebellion with an army of over 180,000 against the capital, overthrew Xuanzong, and declared himself emperor. Though the Tang forces eventually crushed the rebellion, the damage was done. Between 755 and 763 CE, China was torn apart by wars that claimed the lives of nearly 36 million people. Xuanzong fled the capital with Lady Yang and her family. The military escort blamed Yang for the troubles and murdered her family. Realizing his mistakes, Xuanzong allowed Lady Yang to be strangled. The tragic love story of Xuanzong and Lady Yang was later immortalized by the Tang poet Bai Juyi in his famous work, Song of the Everlasting Sorrow, a poem that remains popular even today. After Lady Yang's death, Xuanzong abdicated in favor of his son, Li Heng, who became Emperor Xuanzong. Xuanzong struggled against the rebels but could not completely defeat them. Both he and Xuanzong became increasingly depressed and frustrated as their efforts failed. Xuanzong died in 762 CE, and Xuanzong followed less than 2 weeks later from the same illness. Xuanzong's son, Li Yu, then became Emperor Taizong. Taizong managed to crush the An Lushan Rebellion in 763 CE, but the country was left in ruins. The traditional respect for the emperor and the royal house was severely damaged, with independent warlords now ruling different parts of China. Taizong could not command the authority that Xuanzong had at the beginning of his reign, marking a significant decline in the power and influence of the Tang Dynasty. And in 780 CE, Emperor Taizong was succeeded by his son, Taizong. Unfortunately, Taizong couldn't control the growing power of regional warlords. He attempted to place palace eunuchs in command of his army, hoping they would be more loyal and effective. But this backfired as the eunuchs only sought to undermine the emperor's authority and assert their own power. After Taizong's reign, his sickly son Xuanzong briefly took the throne in 805 CE, but he quickly abdicated in favor of his own son, Xuanzong. Now, Xuanzong was a rare gem in the later Tang Dynasty. He took control of the army, eliminated eunuch influence, and led his forces personally against the warlords, managing to stabilize the country. He reinstated the merit system of appointments, which had been a cornerstone of Xuanzong's early success, and China slowly began to recover. However, in 813 CE, revolts broke out, likely instigated by former warlords. Xuanzong led his army into battle but was initially defeated. He regrouped and ultimately won a significant victory in 817 CE, restoring order. During this time, a Confucian scholar named Han Yu criticized Buddhism, claiming it diverted attention from traditional Chinese values. This led to a backlash against Buddhists. By 819 CE, Xuanzong became obsessed with his mortality and started consuming elixirs promising immortality. These potions made him irritable and erratic, leading to his assassination by a palace eunuch in 820 CE. His son, Muzong, succeeded him but spent his reign indulging in polo and drinking until he died in a polo accident. Next came Jinzong, who did nothing but drink and consort with his concubines. His eunuchs soon assassinated him, replacing him with his brother Wenzong. Wenzong was well-intentioned but indecisive, often swayed by his counselors. He tried stabilizing the country and continuing Xuanzong's policies. When he died in 840 CE, his 16-year-old brother Wuzong took over. Wuzong took Han Yu's criticisms to heart, launching a government persecution of all religions except Taoism. From 842 to 845 CE, Buddhist monks and nuns were killed or forced out of their monasteries, and Buddhist images were destroyed. Other non-Chinese religions, including Manichaeism, Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and Nestorian Christianity, faced similar persecution. Wuzong died in 846 CE after poisoning himself with an elixir of immortality. Li Chen, Xuanzong's 13th son, then took the throne as Xuanzong II, aiming to revive the glory of the early Tang Dynasty. He ended religious persecutions but only allowed Buddhist temples to reopen. Despite his efforts to restore the dynasty's former splendor, Xuanzong II accidentally killed himself with an elixir in 859 CE and was succeeded by his son, Yizong. Yizong, unfortunately, was nothing like his father. His reign hastened the Tang Dynasty's decline. He ignored widespread famine and indulged in luxury while his people starved. When he died in 873 CE, his son Zizong took over, continuing the same policies. The final blow came with the Huangjiao Rebellion, led by a frustrated government worker named Huangjiao. His rebellion, fueled by the government's neglect during a severe famine, caused widespread destruction and claimed over 100,000 lives. The Tang capital, Chang'an, was devastated. The Tang emperors who followed were ineffective, and the dynasty officially ended in 907 CE. Taizong, who tried his best, was assassinated in 904 CE by the powerful warlord Zhu Quanzong. Zhu placed Taizong's young son, Ai, on the throne as a puppet ruler, only to have him killed in 907 CE. This marked the end of the Tang Dynasty and the beginning of the period of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms, a time of fragmentation and conflict until the rise of the Song Dynasty in 960 CE, which eventually reunited China.